Not many people talk about this, but digital gradients can be so difficult to achieve if you don't know the right technique. If you're struggling, here are 5 tips and tricks to make your gradients go from this to this. So let's get to it. Alright, so before we start, don't forget to smash the subscribe button to make all of your digital art life easier. Okay, you've done that, so now let's start. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using the app called Sketchbook. Okay, so the first tip I have for you is a very important one. So make sure you hear this. This is the reason why 90% of the time you would mess up your gradient. It is, don't use the wrong brush. Okay, so most people when they get into the app, they tend to use this brush called Smudge Pen when they come to using gradients. But you see why I like to avoid this brush, because as you can see, it doesn't really give you a clean look, because I'm doing all the technique correctly, but it just gives me this very fuzzy look. So to avoid that, you should probably avoid this pen. This pen is great for doing other things, but when it comes to gradient, it might not be your best choice. So you should use this pen called the Smudge Round Bristle Brush. It will give you a much less strokier gradient, and it will have much more smoothness in between. So as you can see over here, you can see that it's much less strokier than the other one, and it has much more of a neatness. And the second tip kind of corresponds to the first one, but it is keep your flow or occupancy low. Because even if you have the correct brush, if your flow is high, like this, then it will create those strokey lines again. So try to keep your flow under 5, and then you'll get a smoother surface to work on. My third tip is more about the technique you use, because while you paint, what technique do you usually use for gradient? You go up and down in a stroke like this, right? So you can get that smooth gradient. But in digital drawing, it's different, because going up and down like that, even with the correct brush, can make this weird hazy look again. So best you go in a circular motion, like with tiny circles like this. It will give you much more control over the brush than it would with up and down strokes. And also this might kind of seem obvious, but make sure your brush size corresponds to the size of the project you're doing. Though it sounds very obvious, a lot of times people mess up on that is because when they're doing a project as big as like this, because it has a big surface, a lot of people, they put their brushes like, I don't know, to like size 15 or something, and it doesn't really give you a gradient anymore. So that's why you should try to make a bigger brush size if you're doing a bigger thing, and a smaller brush size if you're doing a smaller thing. The fourth tip I have for you has less to do with the technique itself, but more to do with the colors. When you're starting off with digital gradients, I would either go soft colors, like all soft colors, or all bold colors, because you don't want your bold and soft colors to mix when the first time you're doing it, a first or second time, because that will make it a little more difficult for you to practice on. So I recommend doing swatches like this with either soft colors or bold colors, and to warm up yourself to do stuff like green, light pink, and I don't know, blue. So that's like a bold and soft color combination. So when you're just starting off, just try to avoid mixing bold and soft colors. So as you can see here, I picked mostly soft colors because this is a beginner tutorial. Okay, the last tip I have for you is an important one. It is don't overdo it. Okay? You might be wondering, when have I got to the point where I overdid it? So, as you can see, let me just give you an example. I'm going Okay, kind of looks fine right now, kind of. And now I'm just continue doing this, and at a point you're gonna see, even though you do it for so long, it's still kind of messy. So, at this point, it's not really that good anymore. It has that fluffiness. So I feel like maybe even just once in one direction would be fine, but if you want to go once in the other direction as well, that's also fine. But don't do it more than twice. Don't go like one side more than twice, because then you'll end up overdoing it and getting the fuzziness again. So let me just show you the correct way here. So I'm just going once to my right. You don't see much of a gradient right now. As you can see, I have more control over my brush. I have the correct sizing, and I'm doing it in tiny circles. Okay, there. As you can see, once to the right and once to the left, that was enough, and it gave me a much better end result than it did with me keep on going back and forth. And here's just a way that you might want to crisp up your drawing at the end. What I like to do is I like to take a ruler like this and at the end of my gradients, and if I have like a simple shape like this, I like to just take my eraser and erase the side of it, because then it gives me a crisper look. Because a lot of times when you do your gradients, at the end you're gonna see like there's like little parts of the gradient sticking out and all of that. So just like one swipe will just help crisp up the edges. I hope this video helped improve your gradients. Leave a comment below if you have any other tips to make new gradients. Remember, I post 3 times a week, and on my short section you will see a bunch of projects that I do, and on my video section you'll see more tutorials and techniques. So come back to my channel for more. Bye!